Slings are one firearm accessory that can be taken for granted or even ignored on rifles that don't see much use. But for most practical applications, a rifle really needs a sling. There are a lot of opinions on how to attach and run a sling properly, so we've created a lot of options within the Magpul line for slinging your rifle to accommodate different individual preferences. We also know that we have a potentially confusing naming convention for our slings based on their continuous evolution since 2014, so a closer look at our slings category may help sort these things out and help you decide what works best for you. First, let's take a look at the basics of the sling line, and then we'll dive deeper into sling performance, attachment, and configuration. First, at the heart of the performance of our slings is the material they're made of and how it holds up to your use. All our slings are made of a proprietary weave of tubular webbing that's abrasion resistant and minimizes IR reflectivity. You don't have to worry about the webbing getting fuzzy from rubbing against sharp edges or Velcro, and it's been tested to 10,000 adjustment cycles while wet, dry, and even when covered in abrasive dust. And they're made entirely in the US, of course. Our sling hardware is made in-house and was designed to be functional, strong, and lightweight. All of our slings were designed to hold up to far more significant loads than you'll likely ever encounter when using them. As a safety concern, however, some components are designed to fail right around the same point that a conventional bale on a quick disconnect or QD will fail. This built-in failure point for our slings is there for two reasons. First, so you don't end up getting dragged behind a vehicle or hung up on an exit ramp if your sling catches and the bale holds, or when you've directly looped your sling into the rifle without an attachment. And second, so that if the sling fails before a QD socket does, prevents a metal QD from popping out of its socket and hurtling towards your teeth or eyes at a high rate of speed. There are options within our sling line to buy a sling with or without our attachment hardware, and some of the naming conventions are tied to those attachments, so let's cover them first. The first option is our proprietary Magpul Paraclip. This is a high-strength spring clip with a locking feature so that once it's attached, you never have to worry about your sling coming off when you don't want it to. Paraclips are as strong as conventional QDs in pull-out tests, and they are used with metal loop hardware on the rifle. They are also the most economical of the options, and in muddy or sandy conditions, paraclips and the loops they attach to are the most capable attachments when dealing with debris because there's really no functional part to be fouled by that debris. Next are conventional QDs, some of which are available on some of our slings. We use only the highest quality US-made QDs. Conventional QDs have somewhere slightly above 300 pounds of pull-out strength in most applications, which is considered a pretty universal standard. The final attachment is our own quick disconnect mechanism, or QDM. The QDM is an updated QD socket compatible attachment, but it's also quite a bit stronger, has a lower profile, and is generally more user-friendly than a conventional QD. QDMs generally hold out to over 500 pounds of force in pull-out tests. Instead of a central button, the QDM uses two side tabs that work in both pushing and pulling to release, but both must be activated together on the pull. This prevents accidental release of the QDM if something catches one of the levers. This allows a more intuitive attachment and release and also makes the QDM lower profile than a conventional QD. It is possible to release a QDM by pushing one of the levers while pulling the sling or with a direct load on it, so consider that when choosing the QDM. All QD-type attachments work with quick disconnect sockets, which may come already incorporated into various handguards and stocks, or they can be added after the fact. QD sockets can be anti-rotation, which keeps your sling from becoming tangled and twisted, or not, which can allow the swivel to spin freely. This is not a function of the sling hardware, but rather the socket itself. When attaching any QD to a QD socket, it's important to check for false lockup. Due to the way some anti-rotation sockets are made, it's possible to end up with the locking balls or pawls resting between the slots, or for the slot to be fouled with dirt or sand, and although the QD seems to be seated, it may be able to be pulled out with little force. When attaching a QD to a socket, it's always best to insert the QD, give it a twist back and forth to make sure it's in the slot and that the slots are clear, and then give a little tug to be sure. The last and simplest method of sling attachment is simply looping the sling material through a fixed slot or loop on the rifle and using one of the included tri-glides to secure it. This is simple, inexpensive, and durable, but it leaves something to be desired when it comes to removing the sling for maintenance, changing configurations, or if the sling gets caught on something and needs to be released to get free. Now that the basics and the attachments are covered, in part 2 we'll dig into the slings themselves and sort out their features and naming convention.